Okay. I'd like to call the June 5th, 2022 meeting for the City Council of Lake City to order, and if everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing for the invocation. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather this evening to conduct the business of the city, and that what we do is pleasing in your eyes and for the betterment of our community. Guide us in our deliberations, look after our citizens, our first responders, our troops, and in your name we pray. Amen. Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Jefferson?
Here.
Mr. Sampson?
Here.
Mayor Witt?
Here.
Mr. Coverline?
Here.
Mr. Dial?
Here.
Chief Miles?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Lake City Council has opened this public meeting. Since 1968, the city code has prohibited any person from making personal, pertinent, or slanderous remarks and becoming boisterous while addressing the council. Yelling or making audible comments from the audience constitutes boisterous conduct. Such conduct will not be tolerated. There is only one approved manner of addressing city council, that is to be recognized as speaking from the podium. As a reminder, persons are not to openly carry a handgun or carry a concealed weapon or firearm while the governing body is meeting. No proclamation. We have minutes from June 21st, 2022 regular session.
Make a motion for approval of the minutes.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the minutes to publish. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approval of the agenda. I do want to add Mr. Chris Wynn on presentations after the 3 and 4 and the Lake Montgomery Park. And with that amendment to the agenda, is there a motion?
Motion to approve agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, public participation. Sylvester Warren.
Sylvester Warren, Mayor, Council. I'm gonna try to be brief, Mayor. I ask that you bear me a little patience because I want to get into something that's very sensitive and very concerning to me and my family. I'm Sylvester Warren III. I have a son, Sylvester Warren fourth, and I have a grandson, Sylvester Warren V, and I have a granddaughter, and I have 2 grandkids on the way. I have a Down syndrome sister that my grandmother's almost 80 years old, and that I have paperwork to take her into custody if anything ever happened to my grandmother. So why am I saying all this? It's because there has been a threat by law enforcement, in particular a particular officer by the name of Mangrum. That complaint was sustained. I begged local law enforcement officials to fire him. I come back in from a event in Jacksonville. His truck, I went to the police department, they said it was his truck. I asked who was sitting in front of my house. They confirmed, Andy Miles confirmed it was him. At any moment, Mayor, I just want to go on the record. At any moment that people dislike me for me fighting and standing up for what's right versus what's wrong and for justice and equality for all, and think that this is going to be some type of tag that law enforcement is going to use to try to assassinate me. I don't mean assassinate my character, but try to take my life. It's not going to work, Mayor. I'm telling you in front of this whole council that if an officer think that they got the best chance based on my background and perceived behavior that they're going to win by doing something to me and say they did out of fear, I'm letting you know that my level of fear about them is much higher. So therefore, I'm going to stand my ground. So I want to go on the record that I'm just as afraid of law enforcement. I'm just as afraid. And so if nothing is going to be done, know that there is a potential that something may happen. And when the yellow tape come, I can promise you for the promise that I made to my family and my grandkids that it won't be me at that yellow tape. And also, I don't care what time of day it is, what time of night it is. And that goes for everybody in here, that goes for the chief and assistant chief, and I'm gonna call the captain of the highway patrol, and that goes for Mark Hunter. I am not stopping my vehicle be it day or night, until I get to somewhere where I know that there's family or there's someone safe that can be eyewitnesses to that traffic stop. So let's just be clear. That's all I'm coming to do. I'm just coming to clear the air. You've been warned. You are elected officials. Y'all got power to do what you want to do. But if you think that I'm gonna have myself as open prey, it ain't gonna happen, Mayor. Sylvester Warren's gonna live it up to an old ripe age, and nobody is gonna take me out. If the hood ain't took me out, I'm not gonna let nobody else take me out. Thank you.
Okay. B. Coker.
Good evening, my name is B. Coker. I'm before you today because I received an email from someone affiliated with Richardson Community Center. The email is what I've provided to you. In the email, the gentleman identifies an event that they are going to be putting on at Richardson Community Center. It lists, it's a political candidates forum, and that email was sent out on June 17th. Audrey can correct me if I'm off with the date, but I believe qualification was June 16th. That email has been circulated along with the flyer, and it purports those individuals that are seeking candidacy in the positions that are listed. It omits certain positions for city council. It includes some, but it omits others. Richardson Community Center, the property is owned by the city of Lake City, the last I checked. The county has some type of agreement with you guys for running it, and then there's a not-for-profit entity that uses the space and conducts different business. I'm asking for you to consider canceling that event and having it corrected, the documentation, an invitation extended to all the candidates, and either all the candidates be listed on the flyer or no candidates be listed on the flyer. It's prejudicial to identify some individuals as candidates and others as not candidates. I will seek a public records request from Audrey to determine what information was provided to them that allowed them to believe that 3 candidates who were listed as qualified were omitted from that flyer. It's very prejudicial. It misrepresents information to the public, and it disenfranchises the voters. So I do ask you for your consideration to cancel that event and have that event, the flyer corrected and recirculated, and all of the candidates invited in a timely manner to participate in that forum. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Holbrook?
Mayor, members of council, Sean Holmgren, 240 Northeast Laguna Drive. I promise to stop promptly if I'm ever pulled over. I don't need to seek safe grounds. I don't think you should allow any citizen to come in here and threaten law enforcement, as just happened. But that's not really why I needed to step up at the mic. It appears to me that you guys are, after a year of not having a property or not having a city manager, you're considering dropping the search firm, Cullen Benziger. I think this is reprehensible. If you guys are considering, after a year of not having a proper administration, after allowing the city to get gutted for administrative staff during this year, if you're actually considering the thought that you're now capable of hiring a city manager by yourselves without the assistance of a search firm, without their background examination capabilities, I think you're doing so in error. I would rather see you guys all resign tonight and turn the city council over to receivership than to continue going forward without having proper leadership and having a strong desire to fill those positions of city manager, assistant city manager, director of public works, and so many other positions that have faltered over the last year. Please, dear God, please do not try to go this alone. I urge you to hire a proper vetting agency, even if you want to consider the two people that have approached the city. I still think you need to have that assistance. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, that's all I have, so we'll move to approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, presentations, the first one, item 3, is Dr. Christopher Essing.
Hello, and thank you for having me here this evening. I'm here to ask for permission to replace the existing World War I memorial with a new memorial that lists the name of the 60 individuals that died in the conflict. I believe that I sent a picture to Andre, I think that was provided to everyone, along with the articles. When the idea of erecting a World War I memorial was introduced, it was introduced by our Congressman R.A. Green, and he actually secured what is the cannon-looking object on Lake DeSoto. That's actually a trench mortar from World War I. He secured that. He secured 5 shells, have no earthly idea where the 5 shells are. He also secured 2 machine guns from the conflict, but we don't know where those are either. The trench mortar and the shells and we believe the machine guns were placed in what it was called DeSoto Park. So there used to be a park right behind the courthouse, and when the courthouse was expanded once in, I think, 69, they added a back annex to it. DeSoto Park got a little bit smaller. And of course, when they redid the courthouse in 2000, DeSoto Park got moved to Lake DeSoto. And that little section there where you have the officers memorial is actually where DeSoto Park is. And of course, that's where the trench mortar was moved. The idea of having the trench mortar be the memorial to all the soldiers that fought in World War I was that it was a desire to show the veterans here, in particular the VA home that we cared for our veterans, since many of the veterans that were in the VA home at the time were veterans of World War I. And the idea was that ultimately all of those who had died in the First World War, their names would be listed on it. Now, at some point between the time in which the memorial was created and today, those names were never listed. And in the late 90s, when they began to reposition a lot of the memorials into Olusty Park, they then created a new Olusty Memorial, which is the one that's right there in the Half Moon Circle. The problem is that memorial is it doesn't list any of the 60 individuals who died. So my proposal is the one that you see before you, is to take the existing memorial, which was dedicated to all the soldiers who fought in the First World War, which is what the trench mortar is, and place that in front of the trench mortar to identify what it is, because I've had this conversation with Tony, and Tony's like, I never knew what that was, and at least that way it would identify what the trench mortar is, and that it was dedicated to all the soldiers, and that the existing base could still be used, and that the Charles Memorial Company could take that existing base and put the proposed monument on top of it. Now, the other thing I would ask the city is that they take the existing memorial and cement it into the park in front of the trench mortar at DeSoto Park. So that was my proposal. I'd have to raise funds. The new memorial would be $2,000. I would just raise those personally. In fact, I've already raised the funds for the memorial for the soldiers who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's already been ordered. Much like that one, it's about a year for it to be created. So after I raise the funds and get it created, it will probably be a year before it can be installed. So I guess I'm asking for two things. One, for permission to replace the existing memorial, and two, to have the existing memorial moved to DeSoto Park to identify what the trench mortar in DeSoto Park is.
Any questions by council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So I think that's a great idea. One interesting thing, I always like the information presented was the write-up on the park. Mr. I don't know, do you say Windhovel? Okay, he's the guy that introduced the ducks. So anybody who ever wants to know where the ducks came from, we know now. He brought the ducks, but.
Yeah, he did.
But I think, I was asking my grandfather about this. He thinks that the shells were in front of the mortar when it sat in the old park,
Okay.
like standing up, but that's been a long time ago. I don't think they're around anymore.
I don't think they're around anymore either.
But I think it would be good to do this.
Is that a motion?
I can make it as a motion.
Okay,
Where they gonna move it? That's city property?
It's
Yeah.
on the lake, yes.
It's a city park.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, been a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Next is discussion possible action, Dale Williams, Executive Director of Lakeshore Hospital Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, Madam Clerk, staff. For the record, I am Dale Williams. I'm here as the Executive Director of the Lakeshore Hospital Authority. I have two items I wish to discuss in behalf of the authority with you. One is I would like to give you an update as to where the authority is as it relates to the Lakeshore Hospital campus and its use. And then secondly, I would like to have a discussion with council about the 12 lots which were deeded to the city for the purposes of City Hall and city expansion. Beginning with the campus, first of all, just to make sure we all understand what we consider to be the campus is the main hospital, Lakeshore. It is the two-story building which is immediately east of the Darby Pavilion and used to be the Women's Center. And then just north of that center is a building that we call the Physical Therapy Building. Some people call it the Reyes Building because Dr. Reyes's offices were there. So all three buildings comprise what we call the campus. As you're probably aware, there was a request for proposals issued. A number of responses were returned in accordance or as requested with that RFP. Those were divided into two sections. One was those that were going to use or were proposing to use the hospital, and then everything else. And the reason it was done that way is once the hospital is solved, what you do with that hospital, the rest of it becomes pretty easy. And everybody realizes finding a tenant for the hospital makes everything else work pretty smooth. And so that was the first priority. There were three proposals that would actually propose utilizing the hospital. One of them was through a company called Hope Bridges. They basically had a proposal, an initial proposal that provided for some veterans transitional housing. They had a component that would provide for a certain amount of medical care. And then they had some other uses which would all be related to the veterans group that would all be housed in the building. We received a proposal from Florida Gateway College. Florida Gateway had considered making that a downtown campus and were proposing to move all of their medical facility or medical classes there, their training center, and possibly even a culinary school which could use the cafeteria. And then Meridian Behavioral Health Care submitted a proposal which would use the hospital. They basically would use it as a mental health intake facility. They would provide different services. It too would include a medical component. those were pretty involved proposals. The problem with all three of the original proposals is they all come with a request for funding in addition to. Depending on the proposal, they ranged anywhere from $8 to $12 million. So it was never an issue of whether you could just take the proposal, say, that sounds good, we'll be glad to enter into a lease, here's your building. It was never that simple. Every one of the proposals had some dollar value attached to it for different reasons. So we reached out to the three and said, are there, under any circumstances, is there any way that you would be willing to accept the building, but with no subsidy at all from the authority? And they all three responded. The responses varied. After they were discussed, the one that sort of seemed to make the most sense from a financial standpoint, that seemed to have the best hope of making it, was the one from Hope Bridges, which dealt with the VA transitional housing. Now, that is not yet a done deal. That has not yet been decided. There is no final approval. We had a meeting today, as a matter of fact. It is sort of going through the vetting process. I would say right now, the way I would describe it, I can sort of see a pathway to where we could contract with them to provide those services and they could use the building. But the caveats are is it has to be done in a way that it costs the authority, it's representing the taxpayers, no money. And it has to be done in such a way that when they retire the building at some point, that the building is returned in at least a usable, decent state as it was found. So we're having to work through some of those. But the trustees feel it's important for you to know this because they do understand that when you look at the cityscape of the city of Lake City, the hospital is a big part of that. Just about every picture I looked at in the past, however long, showed some part of that hospital in those pictures. It is a beautiful building across the lake, looking at the various surroundings and et cetera. So they are cognizant. They do not want to just put or allow anything in that building, particularly if it would detract in any way from the city and what the city may be doing. So I encourage you on their behalf to take part. If you have an opinion, if you have ideas, if you have suggestions, I'm sure that they would be more than glad to receive them. They want to make sure that whatever the final outcome is, you're part of it. Now, I told you that to tell you this. If this proposal doesn't work, based on conversations they had at their last meeting, I would suggest to you they're going to raise the building. I think the conversation was pretty strong by the trustees. I think that they do not want to see a situation where the building lingers, it becomes more of an eyesore, it becomes a use that is not appropriate for the general area, it's not appropriate for the city or the community. And I just believe that if we're not able to find that path to contracting for the VA transitional housing, they will more than likely move to raise the building. In fact, they have instructed me to go ahead and start the process of obtaining pricing, details, and et cetera, along those lines. And we will be discussing more of that on the 20th. So I think that's where we're at as it relates to the use of the hospital. As I stated earlier, the other two buildings, there are other potential users. Now, I do think one of those is going to be earmarked for a medical component. I think it's important for the trustees to have, to the greatest extent they can provide medical services at that location, to do so. I think that we're well on the way to that. And then I think there are other interested parties using the building. Some are medical related. They're maybe not direct primary care type facilities. Some are not. Some are like governmental uses. One of them involves the city and the county and the need for a joint permitting office. So all of those, we believe that we can properly vet and we can properly determine the best location, the best site, if we can decide what to do with the main hospital. So that's kind of where that process is. And then what's happened through this journey, through this process, is a lot of good ideas have been submitted. And a lot of things that I think as community and community builders, we would like to see have presented themselves. But some of that requires siding. So the 12 lots that were previously donated to the city for the purpose of a new city hall and other city uses, I think it has a reverter in it in 24, if I remember. But at the end of the day, if the city has already determined that that's not the course of action to build a new city hall on those lots or using those lots, I'm here to tell you that the authority has the ability to use those for other good community uses as part of this process. There's been a lot of things suggested that will not get the benefit of one of the existing buildings. But that does not mean that it might not benefit from the use of a lot. And so we don't know if we can put those in play or when we can put them in play until, of course, the council makes a decision, because they are yours. They were given in good faith, and they're yours until 24, and they're yours forever if you decide to do the city hall on them. But I did want to, on behalf of the authority, advise you of what is somewhat of a desire to know if you're interested in giving those back for the purpose of the Lakeshore Hospital Authority trustees potentially utilizing them for other community needs related to, hospital services, medicine, and et cetera. Any questions?
On the 12 lots, I was there when the hospital authority deeded it to the city, and I think that it will be no more than right to give them back to the hospital authority, since we've come to pretty much the senses that what we're gonna do with this building here. So I don't foresee us, I guess, going down the road of building a city hall, a new city hall. So that's just me. My opinion would be to deed it back to, or give it back to the hospital authority.
Well, I know we've done several options, and one was to build there, and one was to build by the old Columbia County Bank building, and then the other one is looking to this. We haven't decided exactly where we're going. It doesn't look like we're going that direction, but I'd like to give it a little bit of time to see where we are going. Not a long time, but just, and I think once we get this report on this building, I think that's what kind of give us a direction to go.
Oh, so I thought you was gonna call me in the morning. You want more time? No.
More.
Mr. Mayor, so I agree with that line of thinking. Also, in that reverter clause, it looked like, and I know there's smarter people like the attorney over there's looked at it, but it may have other use as well, perhaps a parking lot. I mean, if anything you bring, we're gonna need parking. You can't build something there and not have parking. So I'm not sure what the future holds. I think we need a city manager in place to kind of lead us that path, but I think it's just too early to tell.
Right, but I don't agree we're gonna wait until 24 or anything like that.
Well, and just to sort of follow along what the councilman said, and we've long recognized when we deeded those lots, I mean, you still exercise a certain amount of control whether you hold those lots or you don't. I mean, everything we do over there is subject to permitting, it's subject to your site plan, it's subject to your comp plans, all of those good things. So, we fully expect the city would exercise their rights in that process and would give proper review to whatever these potential uses may be. I think the trustees are moving, and they're trying to move very quickly. Those are expensive buildings to maintain. It's costing the taxpayers a considerable amount of money. They want to end it. They want to put people in them if they can use them. They want to remove the main structure if they can't find a suitable user. And the properties that were bought many years ago, I'm sure y'all know more about those purchases than I do. They're ready to put those in production in some way. And so I think we should expect in the very short, near future activity.
Mr. Mayor, I have another question.
Sure.
So if the hospital authority decides to raise the building, is there talk about winding down the authority? Or because it's really set up as from a taxpayer perspective to provide engineering care through the hospital. So I know y'all took it off of our tax bill last year, and I'd assume it's gonna be off again this year. But from that perspective, if you guys weren't gonna use it for those kind of purposes, perhaps, you mentioned there's a building that the government entities are interested in, maybe we could work something out on that sooner rather than later.
Well, I can't really answer your question because I'm not a trustee. I can tell you they've not discussed that. What I can tell you though, Councilman, is there are a laundry list of things in the enabling law that the authority can do. And of course, the two big ones are, they are pretty much the steward for the buildings, and they have a medical assistance program. Those are the two main things that they do. You are correct, they have not used their ability to levy a millage in 2 years. We're going to discuss setting the maximum millage rate next Monday night. I've not discussed it with any council member, any trustee, but certainly I would not expect them to levy a millage. And the reason for that is the way they established the budget authority. This was before me, certainly I agree with it. All the operating costs that the authority incurred were not paid with any ad valorem. Those were all paid with lease revenue generated from the building. So any of the staff salaries, any operating expense whatsoever, the light bill, you name it, was all paid from that revenue. When CHS left, they were able to negotiate a settlement with them where they basically paid off the remainder of the lease. And they were able to do it in based on future revenue, so they had a reduced rate, but still invested prudently. It should equal what they would have paid in rent. So they really didn't leave without paying any rent. I think it's important that that be continued, and I think the trustees think that's important. So what we're trying to do in all of this is create revenue streams that pay operating costs. Treasuries are now 3.4%. Getting back to the point that you can invest money. By the way, the authority has about $21 million in cash money. It's not as if they're a grown public entity. You start investing money like that at 3.4%, and you start generating the money you need for the medical assistance program without having to return to a millage. And so I think a lot of what happens there, Councilman, to get back to your question, and how successful they are to set up a process like that, would determine what they would think about the long-term effectiveness of the authority. Ideally, the authority would have went away when the Affordable Health Care Act was passed. Because technically, anyone could go and qualify for affordable health care coverage. The problem with that program is that it carries, while you may not make a premium payment because you qualify based on income, the family turned around and realized they had $6,000 in deductibles. They had X dollars in co-pays for doctor visits. You couldn't enroll them. They weren't enrolled. They just refused to enroll. So it does become somewhat of a safety net, medical assistance program, and it catches a lot of people who just would not sign up, even though they qualified for programs like that. But the program automatically disqualifies you if you're Medicare or Medicaid eligible, you have private insurance, you have an ability to pay. And the screening process is pretty intense. It's been criticized because it has been so intense. That was a big problem with the old hospital office. Hey, y'all are looking for reasons to turn people down, you know. Well, we're just trying to do what the policy said do, or what the contract said do. It's not that we're trying to be overbearing, we're just doing what we were supposed to do. So it's not an easy one to qualify. But again, I think to answer your question, I'm sorry about going all the way around, I think it really depends on where they sit once they see what revenue generation can occur from those facilities and what they can potentially do with the investment of public money.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
That's an opinion. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome, Mr. Mayor. And if anytime you'd like to come visit,
Mr. Mayor,
Uh-huh.
I'll let you go on record as saying, also, I agree with the comment from Councilman Hill, you, Mayor, and as well as Mr. Sampson here. My feelings is that if we, meaning council, city, determines that we are not going to use those lots, but then I think it would be no more than fair, right, that we revert them back to the authority, you know, and let them use them as they see fit to use them if they're not gonna benefit us. The problem is I don't think we is in a position to give you a positive answer as we speak right now. But I think we need to do that as expeditiously as we can, because you all would like to consider that in your negotiations or whatever you're doing here.
and understood, Councilman. So on behalf of the trustees, we appreciate you considering it, and I will certainly relay your sentiments. And of course, on their behalf, I would ask that just as soon as you know or can give an answer, that you do so. And we will simply try to structure what we do around that decision. So if those things that we can work with, we will. Those things that we cannot work with, we won't. And we'll see how much success we can have. Fair enough?
Okay, very good.
And you're all welcome to come for a visit or whatever at any time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your time.
At this time, I'll call Chris Wynn for his presentation on the Lake Montgomery project.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you tonight. I've got a couple slides here to show you a few things about Lake Montgomery and this pier that we've been working on for several months. About the last 6 months, we've been trying to reel in partners to partner with us on this new exciting project. We came in about 6 months ago with $150,000. And so far, we've gotten the county, North Florida Professional Services, and some private funding secured. And hopefully tonight, we'd like to land you as the final partner before we move forward with building the pier. So I just want to kick it off. This first slide kind of threw some pictures together to kind of demonstrate some really exciting things that are happening in Lake City, some good things from a lake perspective. And the TDC recently in the last couple of weeks, released their new Lake City, Florida Springlands logo. Wanted to give them a shout out. And I found it interesting that it sort of matches the picture in the top left-hand corner that was taken on June 18th while the Boy Scouts were out doing a lake cleanup on Lake Montgomery. So I'm really proud of the Boy Scouts. I want to give them and Troop 85 a shout out for partnering with Current Problems, which is another organization that came in to help out with the cleanup And they're planning some more cleanups throughout the rest of the year. So there's some really good things going on. If I can get you to slide down to that next slide, that'd be great. So I had the opportunity to meet out on the lake here last Friday with Councilman Sampson, Commissioner Murphy, and Mr. George Hudson. And we were able to talk about where we were at with funding and some of the issues that we have with the lake as well as Campbell Park. And I want to kind of show you that this one opening is where we're proposing to put the new pier. It happens to be one of the few openings that you can actually see the lake from. So if you'll go ahead and slide down to the next slide, give everyone a shot. This is me standing on Baya, if you're familiar, looking down towards the lake, and I took a picture Saturday, I believe this was Saturday morning, on the sidewalk on Baya, and the lake's behind all those trees and shrubbery. You can't see this beautiful Lake Montgomery that we have right here in Lake City because of all those shrubs. So that was one of the things that we identified, and really like to slide down to the next slide and get right into the funding proposal, some of the things that we talked about. So we're breaking this into two categories. There's pier funding and park funding. From a pier funding, we're asking for the city to commit $20,000 again towards a $450,000 pier. Included in that would be some composite material to replace the decking on the boardwalk that's out there near the pier. Asking the city to provide funding and/or in-kind services for a new sidewalk that would be ADA accessible to the fishing pier. Some potential funding for upgrading the fountain. The electricity is already out there. A building permit, and then naming rights. So that would be in total $50,000 for pier funding. If I could draw your attention to the park funding, these are some of the things that we talked about. Again, that underbrushing we think is critical to opening up the view shed and improving the aesthetics of the park. We think that'll cost about $15,000. As mentioned previously, we think we need probably between $7,000 and $8,000, $9,000, maybe $10,000 for a new gate. We'd like to secure funding for a fence along Baya. Definitely some more garbage cans, maybe garbage cans with lids on them. I was noticing the crows and raccoons getting in there, and some of those open canister garbage cans that are out there. Some new signs, and then maybe some miscellaneous funding. So trying to kind of round that out at $50,000 for park funding. I think my last slide I'll land on. I thought this was fitting to show this the day after 4th of July. This is a really neat project. We've heard a lot of positive community support. If you don't know, the gentleman there is President Teddy Roosevelt. And he said something, I'm gonna read this. Moving forward to take care of the lake, I would like to remind you all the most important thing, the preservation of the lake and all that surrounds it, not for just today, but for all future. Teddy Roosevelt said something similar to that, but that's not who actually said that. Actually, George Hudson Jr. wrote that in the Lake City letter to the editor, so I wanted to pull that out. And I really appreciate all of the attention that's gone into this beautiful natural resource here in Lake City. And I think my last slide kind of sums up the ask here. And hopefully signing this partnership memorandum agreement is something that you all will be in favor of moving forward. And we'd like to get started as soon as we get that agreement. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
So when Mr. Wing came before, we had set aside $75,000.
Right.
After looking at it, we need the amount to be $100,000. I think there's several crucial things here that we're missing before that are on here now: the gate, the fence, the garbage cans, clearing the underbrush throughout the entire park, which will make more of the park usable. It'll also give you more of a bank to fish off of as well, because there's some bank area that could be utilized once we clear that area. Now that clearing that amount would be done by another party, it wouldn't be the Public Works Department, that's why that's there. And then I think this would go toward making sure we're protecting the lake long-term. Along with the other project we have going with the cameras going into the parks, I think it'll also help secure the safety of the park for after hours. So the other 25,000, I would be for allocating that, and we would have to put that on the next agenda, but I think we could go ahead and sign the agreement since we already set aside the 75,000 pending. I mean, I'm not exactly sure about that, but I would be for it with this plan in place.
Mr. Caroline, can we do that, or we need to wait on it, if we're gonna add to it?
Well, certainly want to wait until you add to it. I do have a question. I received the draft, the agreement that's watermarked draft, and I also received this 2022 Opportunity Improvement Plan. And Mr. Sampson, where were you reading from where you detailed out what the city's responsibilities were? I do not find it in the draft agreement.
In the funding, in the other document,
Okay.
the funding document.
Improvement plan? And that is referenced in the agreement, so I have not had an opportunity to review that thing.
We'll take it up in 2 weeks.
Is there,
Mr. Warren, did you wanna speak?
will the timing work?
Did you wanna speak?
Well, as long as we moving in the direction of that we're gonna do the appeal, I have nothing to say other than let's do the appeal.
Okay, good.
So would we put this on the agenda for approval of that document at the next meeting?
Document and 100,000. Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Mayor, I have a question for clarity, if you will, on the fencing. Now, what is the extent of the fencing? That along Vale, line at the frontage area of it? What's the extent of the fencing area?
If I may, I'll jump in. I think that's ultimately up to you all to decide. That's city part there. What we discussed was go ahead and allocate the fencing so that it could be the money for the fencing. So that if we want to do the fencing down the road, along the road, that's where more fence could be put up. But the priority from our discussions out there last Friday was really from a gate standpoint. We need to get the gate in, as well as maybe a little fencing on both sides of the gate, see how that works out. And then we'll have the money there if we want to extend the fence down along Bay, down, into the future.
And one other piece of that, so once we clear that underbrush, so you'll be able to see down to the fence, down to the lake, it's gonna have a little bit of a hill. So that's the other idea behind the fence, is you don't want anybody riding their bike to fall down the hill and get hurt. But that 20,000, I think, is the number that would cover from the edge of our property by the church to the empty lot by the other church, which is the Presbyterian. They both use them as parking lots. And also in this plan, I think you noticed there was a gate being added by the New Life Church on their parking lot that's gonna be able to be closed too.
Yes, sir. They've actually already added that gate, so it's a new gate installed behind New Life. We have to come back. I'll get that agreement over to Mr. Coverline and come back in 2 weeks. So.
Mayor, just want to make sure. So we're not going to go ahead and sign the agreement now. We're going to wait 2 weeks. You're good with that?
Right.
Okay.
I have something.
Yeah.
Mr. Nguyen, again, I support this project 100%. And now I'm asking this council to put the same energy into the Gwen Lake. That Gwen Lake project's been going on a little longer than this project here. And I think that I feel like Gwen Lake deserves the same amount of attention, if not more, because it's still, again, people live around Gwen Lake, feel the same way about Gwen Lake as people feel about Lake Montgomery. And like I say, the city is investing a lot of money in Lake Montgomery, and Gwen Lake look worse than Lake Montgomery. Gwen Lake look worse than Lake Montgomery. It has nothing to do with you, Mr. Nguyen, but it's the same concept. Both two lakes, people live around both of them. One is getting more attention than the other one, and both of them need attention. So I'm just asking this council to put the same energy into Gwen Lake, and which Gwen Lake is in my district. And I ran on getting Gwen Lake back the way it used to be. And again, I would support Lake Montgomery, and I'm asking the same thing for Gwen Lake. And that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move into ordinances. We'll open a public hearing on City Council Ordinance number 2022-2225. Final reading. Mr. Caroline, would you read that by title?
An ordinance of the City of Lake City, Florida, amending the future land use plan map of the City of Lake City Comprehensive Plan as amended, relating to an amendment of 50 or less acres of land pursuant to an application CPA 22-04 by the property owner of said acreage under the amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3248 Florida statutes as amended, providing for changing the future land use classification from commercial to residential medium density of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Lake City, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date, period.
Does anybody in the audience want to speak for or against this ordinance? If not, then we'll close the public hearing, move into adoption of City Council Ordinance 2022-2225 on final reading.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Ordinance 2022-2225 on its final reading.
Second.
Been a motion and a second, any discussion by council? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mayor Webb?
Yes. Next, we're to have the public hearing on City Council Ordinance 2022-2227 on final reading. Mr. Caroline, would you read that by title?
An ordinance of the City of Lake City, Florida, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Lake City land development regulations as amended, relating to the rezoning of less than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z22-03 by the property owner of said acreage, providing for rezoning from commercial general to residential multifamily 1 of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Lake City, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Anybody in the audience wish to speak for or against this ordinance? We'll close the public hearing, move into adoption of City Council Ordinance 2022-2227.
Mr. Mayor, move for the approval of ordinance number 2022-2227 on its final reading.
Second.
Been a motion and a second, any discussion by council? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Webb?
Yes. Next, we're to open a public hearing on City Council Ordinance number 2022-2228 on final reading. Mr. Caroline, would you read that by title?
An ordinance of the City of Lake City, Florida, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Lake City land development regulations as amended, relating to the rezoning of less than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z22-04 by the property owner of said acreage, providing for rezoning from residential single-family 1 to residential multiple family 1 of the City of Lake City, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Anybody wish to speak to this ordinance? We'll close the public hearing and move into adoption of City Council Ordinance 2022-2228.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Ordinance number 2022-2228 on its final reading.
Second.
Been a motion and a second, any discussion by council? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Webb?
Yes. Next, we have City Council Resolution 2022-068, which was tabled. So I need a motion to remove it from the table.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to take up this resolution and remove it from the table.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mr. Caroline, would you read City Council Resolution 2022-068?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of a contract with Cohen, Bainziger and Associates for providing for executive recruitment services related to the employment of a city manager, declaring an emergency pursuant to section 2-181 of the city code, authorizing an agreement price not to exceed $29,500.00, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date, period.
Mr. Warren, you want to speak to this?
I had one, this is number 8, correct, Phil?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, Council, first of all, I wanna, just clear the record. I've never threatened law enforcement. I was only talking about doing what I have to do to defend myself and preserve my own life. And I think that anybody sitting on this council, anybody in their right mind, would do anything to defend themselves and preserve their life. I don't believe in threatening police officers. I find it to be a very noble job. I've always been in favor of good cops. The only thing I've ever said is that we need less bad cops as well as we need is less bad pilots flying people around the world. In saying that, Mayor, I guess I'm a little confused with removing the table the particular firm. Are we saying that the firm, we're not going to use the firm? We're saying that we're looking at some other option? I guess I'm.
All we did is just bring it back up for discussion. We haven't.
Okay. So we're bringing it back up for discussion and seeing where we're going to go from this point.
Right.
All right, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Resolution 2022-068.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Webb?
Yes. Okay, next is item 9, discussion possible action considering interviewing David Lynch and Mr. Wilford. Mr. Warren, you want to speak to that? Mr. Warren?
Sir,
We're on item 9.
Mr. Mayor, if you would, it may be another issue. I don't wanna go to the mic, and it may be something that may rectify itself. Can I reserve it until y'all speak?
Sure. All right, discussion by council. Item 9.
Mr. Lynch, like I said, he's wanting to come out on his own dime for an interview. I don't see what it would hurt the city if he's gonna spend his own dime to come here to hear what he got to say. Not saying that we would hire him, but just hear what he got to say.
What about Mr. Wilford? Did you want to interview him at the same time?
Sure.
Rest of the council? I don't want to bring him if there's not a consensus, at least 3 of us could strongly consider not hire him, but at least give him a fair shot. If we're not going to hire him, I don't see bringing him here just for that.
Well, I have no stronger objections above what I mentioned in our council meeting, our last council meeting. But I don't want to, as you said, deny them an opportunity for our interview. They both qualified, so I have no objection to talking about our interview. It would be in a better position to determine whether we want to consider them further at that moment. But I will say that he had some, I was concerned about the weaknesses or the issues that I brought up.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, so on item 8, we hired a headhunter to go out and bring in applicants. I think we owe it to the residents of the city to see who they bring in now. I reviewed these 2 applications. I'm not an HR director. From my perspective, I mean, a conversation's a conversation, but as for me, I don't see anything that would lead to a hiring decision. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't, I mean, you have an interview, I'll show up to it, but I'd like to see the vetting done by Bessinger. You look at their proposal, you look at what they're gonna do for us, it's night and day different than what we just went through and wasted all our time with on the last company. I think we owe it to give them a chance to do the work and see what they come up with.
Give us these applications.
I'd say for these applications, let them go through the vetting process with, because we're gonna pay them anyway at this point. So let these applicants go through that process. I mean.
Mr. Mayor, I do want to speak.
Okay.
Go ahead. I agree with Mr. Sampson on that.
Mr. Mayor, we just had a consensus, and you said that we had a consensus. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. This is a democracy.
Right.
Right? Nobody like Mr. Sampson, but one man can't run the council.
Right.
Right? What would it hurt for Mr. Robert from Gainesville to drive in and be interviewed quickly? For Mr. Lynch to fly in, be interviewed quickly, and then whoever, the headhunter firm, by the time we get the contract and by the time they get their candidates together, we may be already into another election cycle. Why we can't do both? Or why do this city always feel that we can't do more than one thing at a time? That's why we lag so far behind. We can interview those two candidates, whether Mr. Sampson think they're qualified or not. It's not up to him. It's just one vote, and he said that plenty of times before.
Right.
See what they got to offer. It doesn't cost us a dime. And then whatever the $29,000 brings us, see what it's got to offer. You ain't got to make a decision when these guys either fly in and come. Okay, we hearing them out. We may like it, and we may save $29,000, or we may still end up spending $29,000. But to change it all around when people are ready to come in and give us an interview, I just think it's wrong to shut down the interview process for people that's willing to fight for free to be heard just because one person thinks that their application should be shipped over to a headhunter firm. That's ridiculous. We got people who are really ready and willing to come in and help us, and we're saying, nah, we're gonna spend 30 grand and wait to see what the 30 grand people say about you. Instead of, we've hired people before. Mayor, you've been here for a very long time. We've hired people before without this particular process.
Right.
So this is nothing new. The precedent has already been set that this can be done. Am I right or wrong?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, has anyone reached out and talked to Mr. Lynch?
I have not.
Clerk, are you aware of anyone talking to Mr. Lynch?
I believe a council member may have reached.
What about the other one too, Mr. Wilford's?
I am not aware of anybody reaching out to Mr.
Well, I spoke with Mr. Lynch personally. Like I said, he didn't go into any detail. He's just interested in coming out to introduce himself to the council and states what he's capable of doing. And I didn't go into any details.
Did he call you or?
I called him.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
I called him.
I know we had a lot of discussion over like who different people have talked to in the past.
And this other guy, I vaguely remember him at several conferences that we was at.
Mr. Wilford has been on the North Florida Planning Council with me for years, and I've known him from that. And, but I haven't had any discussion or even conversation with him. Well, actually, all the meetings have been Zoom, so I haven't really personally. I'll let Mr. Holcomb speak.
Mayor, members of council, I've seen what you've done in the past when you tried to make quick decisions. Amy Fields was an example of a quick decision where it didn't get vetted properly. Please follow the procedure that you've set up so far and continue using a qualified headhunter or placement agency to interview the clients and weed out the people that are not qualified and present to you people that they will then do a thorough background examination on. Please do not sidestep your own vetting process to now speed up things after you've already taken a year. I think you should follow through with proper vetting and have a firm that knows how to place executives doing that vetting for you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, you know, this guy, he brought up Amy Fields. Again, Amy Fields was our HR director. She had all of her credentials. A few years before that, again, I've said this, told this story before. A few years before that, we had a guy that they put in the city manager position. He didn't have a high school diploma. At the time, Tweety Tower was a finance director. She was running the city. He just was in that position with a GED. But no one seemed to have a problem with that. But no sooner a person like Ms. Fields with all her credentials, it's a problem with, again, you don't have to come back to the podium. Ms. Mayor, finished.
I still have 2 minutes on the clock, and since you want to refute me.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
So, as talking back on item 9, are there any other applicants that have applied other than these two? And why are they in this list? 'Cause I've seen other emails, I'm pretty sure from other people. There was a guy named Keen, I think. There's been a lot of emails back and forth over different things. I think a Ray Keen wanted to apply. I think if you go back to the emails, he had sent out a feeler. If we're gonna go and start doing an application process without looking at the resumes and the supporting docs, one nice thing I like about the Basinger package is they go and look at the media, what people have done that's out there in media. Because if you look at some of the people we're talking about here in the media, and then come back and tell me you want to have an interview, we'll have a different discussion. But again, I'm just one vote, and actually a vote for my district. I know a lot of times we have people stand at the podium, they're one voice for themselves. But they carry the weight supposedly of a whole community. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But if y'all want to interview Lynch or Wilford, we can interview them. But I think we need to see what Basinger has to offer.
Well, Mr. Hogan, real quick.
I just want to say that Mr. Hill was making comments about Amy, which were inappropriate.
Mr. Mayor,
Well,
point of
no,
order.
get into that.
Mr.
That's
Mayor, we need to stop that. We need
Because
to
she
talk
had
about that.
fraudulently filled out her application, which you guys had not
Mr. Mayor.
found out until late in the
Mr.
game,
Mayor,
so
we need to follow.
please
the rules.
don't
You're
make
letting
sure.
us get interrupted all the time at the podium, and it shouldn't happen for any party. Once we're talking, it should be us talking.
Mr. Sampson, I have no objection of the firm. Only thing I'm just asking is see what these guys have to offer. Again, I voted to support the hiring, the headhunter to come in. But again, if these guys are willing to come, let's at least hear what they got to say. That's all I'm asking.
There'll be some difficult questions.
Mr. Mayor, my feeling is that if we're gonna hire a headhunter, we hire them for that purpose. My preference would be for all applicants to go through the headhunter. And including these two. One of them mentioned in their letter that they sent that they was aware that we did not have a headhunter at that time, therefore they submitted their information directly to us. But I think that all applicants should be given the same opportunity, not interviewing some ahead of time and then get applications through the headhunter. If we're gonna interview these without the benefit of a headhunter, why are we paying the headhunter the money? We possibly could make a choice between these two, and the headhunter, we've entered an agreement with them for nothing. I think that I know it's gonna delay it for a while, but I think to be fair with all applicants, they need to go through the headhunter,
That seems to be,
not directly to us.
well, is there a motion that anybody wants to make, or you wanna just move on with the headhunter? A motion, we'll move along.
You should call both of those guys though and tell them to resubmit their stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Discussion, possible action, City Hall update, Mr. Dial.
Yes, Mayor, I did talk to Tech, and they would be willing to send the original engineer that done the original structural analysis on the City Hall building, and for a cost of $10,000 to come to Lake City, redo the structural analysis on the building, take a look at everything again, update the report, and give a new updated what they find with the building, if there's anything that's changed in the last 4 years since the last one.
That sounds good to me. Do we need a motion on that? Mr. Everline?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, is there a motion?
Can we identify funding source as well, please?
With this being safety, you have, where do you want to fund it from? Where would the funding come from?
Contingency.
Contingency.
We can pull it from contingency or see what's left in the general building fund.
Okay. All right, is there a motion?
I get a motion, Mayor, that we move forward with Texas Tech to do the updated evaluation review.
Okay.
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion by council? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill? Sorry?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Mayor Witt?
Yes, and Mr. Dial, you spoke to me just before the meeting about the affordable housing fund.
Yes.
Can you update everybody on that?
Yes, with the affordable housing, Ms. Phillips has been working very close with the county. We have all the forms and everything are online now. Ms. Phillips has made some flyers and stuff that are being posted on all of our social media, and it's live, so anybody that wants to apply for it now can go through the county's website to apply for the building assistance.
Thank you. All right, item 11 and 12, the same thing every week, police officers, pension board, and fire pension board, we need some qualified people. In the new business, we have City Council Ordinance 2022-2229 on first reading. Mr. Carroll, would you read that by title?
An ordinance of the City of Wake City, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 2 of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for amendments to the rules of city council meetings, providing for training of appointees to special standing committees, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of conflicts, providing for codification, and providing an effective date, period.
Is there a motion as the City Council Ordinance 2022-2229?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Ordinance 2022-2229.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Next, City Council Resolution 2022-069. Mr. Carroll, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the sale of a 2004 Vector truck to the City of High Springs, providing for the purchase price of $8,000.00, providing for the removal of the asset from the city's fixed assets, and providing for an effective date, period.
Is there a motion as City Council Resolution 2022-069?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve resolution 2022-069.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. 15, the City Council Resolution 2022-070. Mr. Carroll, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, calling for an election to be held August 23rd, 2022, providing for the election of a council member from District 10, providing for the election of a council member from District 14, providing for the city clerk to coordinate arrangements for said election with the Columbia County Supervisor of Elections, and directing the clerk to publish notice of the election, period.
Is there a motion as City Council Resolution 2022-070?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion for approval of City Council Resolution 2022-070.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. City Council Resolution 2022-071. Mr. Carroll, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of the Second Amendment to the Memorandum of Agreement with Swanee River Water Management District, providing for an extension of the contract's deadline for deliverables to August 15th, 2022, and providing for an effective date, period.
Is there a motion as City Council Resolution 2022-071?
Mayor, move for approval of resolution number 2022-071.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, so, Mr. Dial, will we be able to complete it in this one, you think?
That is strictly up to Swanee River Water Management District. the city of Lake City, the engineering firm, we have supplied the information over and over, and they keep asking for additional information. That's why we had to ask for the extension the first time. And they've been not non-responsive, but slow in responding back to the models and stuff that we've sent in, and they keep sending for additional information, so it just keeps getting pushed back.
Thank you. Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
And Mayor Webb.
Yes. Okay, Departmental Administration Procurement Director Karen Nels reports the city attorney evaluation committee meeting will be July 26, 2022 at 6 p.m. a special call city council meeting. Mr. Dowell, anything additional with that?
No, sir, that's just the dates that, everything's gonna be wrapped up on that. We'll start having interviews, or the council will be going over the applicants and stuff. If you could, Mayor, I would like to make one comment, if I could.
Sure.
There was a comment made concerning the gutting of the administration of the city of Lake City. The only vacancies we have right now was for a city manager and assistant city manager. Yes, we need a public works director, but I have someone that's interim right now, and that will be taken care of very soon. All the other director positions and administration are filled. I don't know where these individuals get their information from. The city is running well. The city does not have any issues as far as the administration and taking care of business. We're well ahead. Well, not well ahead, but we're good on getting ready for the budget process that is starting. All facilities are taken care of. The public is taken care of. I don't know of any issues that the public has faced. Whenever they come to the city buildings, they get taken care of. So I find offense to that, if someone makes a comment to that. As an interim city manager, the administration falls under my watch. The city has an outstanding staff, and I take offense to anybody that wants to say anything negatively towards the administration. If they want to criticize me, that's fine, but the city as a whole is working fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I want to make a comment on that. So, in the last year, I've received far fewer calls of complaints about city departments. I think you're doing a fine job. I think the staff's doing an outstanding job. I see stuff getting mowed in public works that I have not seen mowed in 10 years. And I think it's really turning around.
Yep.
That's to your leadership.
Good job.
I just wanted to find out, did you want me to reach out to those two candidates and
Yes.
also look into the ranking that Mr. Sampson talked about the application for the city manager position? Okay.
It might be.
Anybody that contacts us about applications at this point need to be referred to.
Yes, we'll be happy to do that. I'm not certain I saw the one from Mr. King, but I will look.
Okay. And Mr. Hill, you going to?
Yes, yes, on August the 6th, I will have my community event. Everybody, when I say everybody, I mean everybody is welcome to come. We're gonna have fried fish, hamburgers, hot dogs, music, bounce houses, maybe some cornhole. So again, I encourage and I wish everybody would come out and enjoy this day. There's other events going on this particular day, but I also
That be it?
it's gonna be at the what you call that, Terry? The memorial.
Same location as last year.
The baseball field.
Yeah, your baseball field. Yeah, and
What time?
it's gonna be from 1 to 4.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple things real quick. So, I don't know if we've heard back yet about the cameras at Andy Maddox Park. Have you received anything, Mr. Coberline?
No, sir.
I think we need to get the cameras ordered and just maybe exclude that part of the order until we hear back from them. We can just order them later, because the longer we delay those routers to do the wireless cameras in all the parks, I mean, we need to go ahead and get that moving. I mean, we've already approved it, so I don't know if we could just advise staff to move forward on that, and then when they come to agreement, if they come to agreement, then we can order that at that time. We've already had, I believe, a 6% price increase since he brought it last time, so the longer we delay, prices are just gonna keep going up.
Ma'am, before you adjourn, I'd like to say one more thing. Mr. Dowell, again, I appreciate you clarifying about how the city is being ran. Again, I think you're doing an outstanding job. And also on my community event, we will be giving out back to school supplies. So again, everybody please come out and join the festivities.
One other thing too, so Mr. Hill mentioned Gwen Lake earlier. I think it'd be good to have an update on where we are at that at the next meeting. If we could get something on the agenda to update us with where we're at, what needs to be done. There's some money available for different improvements, so now would be the time to look into doing them for sure. On the event in August, you mentioned back to school supplies. Is there acceptance of donations or?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Who do they give those to you?
Alright.
I'll give them,
We will be
the
adjourned.
people that's helping me organize it, and, I'll get with them.
Yeah.
I'll get you some stuff too.